afternoon, and we're trying to get some things changed because Senate's going to be in a little bit lesser time tomorrow, not as long as we're today, and so we may try to move it. We're trying to move it. If we move it, we'll let you know. If we don't move it, we'll let you know. But right now, does not affect y'all, but some of the other people here. We're going to be looking at House Bill 228 tomorrow, House Bill 607, House Bill 392, and Senate Bill 264. Just kind of give you a little bit of heads up on it, okay? Very good. Thank y'all for being here. Everybody's in a hurry. Everybody's stressed out. It's kind of like I told, one of our younger people, Keenan, wherever he's at. Sometimes you feel like, I don't know how many of you, I've represented a bunch of nurse homes over my time. A good many of them, and you go in a nurse home, they always got a big sign. Today is Wednesday, March the 15th, and I feel like that's the world we're in right now. We need somebody else to tell us what day it is and what time it is. So it's not the same. So if y'all would, let's open it with a prayer, and then we'll get right on into it. Lord God, we love you and we appreciate you, and we thank you for always being there for us, Lord, and always giving us the guidance and wisdom, Lord, to make decisions for the great people of Georgia. Please be with our meeting today, Lord. In your Son's name I pray. Amen. Okay, we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to start off with number one on the list, Representative Gambell.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you go through that list of bills again? Make that announcement one more time.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Tomorrow.
228, these are House Bills 228, 607, House Bill 392, and then Senate Bill 264 for Senator Jackson. It's just going to be a hearing.
Okay. What time
Hearing
is the
on.
meeting tomorrow?
Ma'am?
What time is the meeting?
4 o'clock. Now, we're going to try to move it so if we can, because of the Senate's not going to be in session as long tomorrow. Okay? Good. Thank you. Hopefully that'll give everybody a little more time to plan and different things. So, and we got a couple people signed up after you.
All right.
Okay, let's roll.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to be with y'all today, and I have before you House Bill 130, which is Governor Kemp's administrative initiative dealing with the Georgia Peace Officer Service Loan Repayment Program. The idea, the concept behind this bill is to recruit and retain public law enforcement officers across our state. Leading up to this, I got some numbers from the Georgia Sheriff's Association, the Georgia Chief of Police Association, and also our State Patrol to kind of see where we were at numbers-wise. And somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 officers short that we are across the state for state and local law enforcement officers. And so
Wow.
This is a bill that is designed to recruit and retain law enforcement officers in our state. It does build upon what we did last year when we added criminal justice degrees to the High Demand Career Initiative to be eligible for Hope Career Grant. So this is kind of a second part of that. As you know, law enforcement officers are critical to protecting the citizens of our state, but oftentimes they're faced with difficult decisions between heeding the call to public service, of public service, or seeking other opportunities to pay student loans. And so to ensure that we retain and attract top talent, we're looking to implement an investment of $3.2 million in a loan repayment plan for state and local law enforcement officers. This plan funds up to 800 officers and will provide a loan repayment of up to $20,000 per officer in exchange for 5 years of service. The bill before you also includes existing officers. If someone would like to go back to school and complete a degree in criminal justice, they are also eligible for this program as well. The funding for this program is in the FY24 budget proposal that we're currently in the middle of, as you know. And again, I just want to make sure you understand this is for anyone that is new, that wants to come in, that has certified student loan debt. This would be eligible to be repaid if they worked for up to 5 years. They could earn up to $20,000 towards that, paying off that loan. Or if someone that is currently employed at a police, sheriff's, or state patrol and they wanted to go back, they would have to get a degree specific to criminal justice to be eligible. But they're eligible under this program as well to receive up to $20,000 in exchange for working for up to 5 years. So that is in essence what this bill does. I'm happy to answer your questions, and also want to mention that a lot of the questions that we addressed in the House, or that we answered in the House, were of a technical nature, and we do have President Riley with us today from the Georgia Student Finance Commission, who can certainly speak to some of the rules that they'll promulgate that will handle some of the technical questions that I'm sure you all probably have as well. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the bill, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Let me just ask you a couple of questions. 5-year requirement, all at the same location, or can it be from the sheriff's department to the city police to the firefighters included in this?
No, sir. It's just law enforcement.
Just law
They have to be
enforcement.
post-certified. And what would happen in that scenario is Student Finance Commission would work with those individuals. If there was not a break in service,
Okay.
they would track that for them. So if they went to work from, one police department and they moved over to the sheriff's department, or wherever they moved, as long as there wasn't a break of service, it would not jeopardize their participation in this program.
Yeah. Any questions from the committee before we go into other speakers?
We got other speakers?
Yes. Senator Orrick?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing the bill. Was there a reason that you pushed it off till January the 1st, 2023, since our needs are high? And if there is any way to start at the beginning of the next fiscal year? That was number one question. Number two is fiscal note, how y'all are handling that.
Right. Well, so the fiscal note it's just defined. We funded up to 800 slots for this program that will be awarded on a first come, first served basis. That Student Finance Commission will oversee that process. The funding for it was calculated, and it's an initial investment for the first year of $3.2 billion. It will require subsequent appropriations of $3.2 million, leading all the way up to a total investment over a 5-year period of $20 million to fund these 800 slots for individuals that want to participate. And then the other question that you asked me, and I'm sorry, would you remind me?
Oh, it was the timing. Was there
timing.
any chance that you could bring it online middle of the year, at the beginning of our next fiscal year?
So it was determined January 1 of this year would have to be when you.
Of the 23rd, not the 24th. So
That's right. So if
the clock's running.
if you're working right now, you're eligible to participate in this program,
Oh, excellent.
and going forward. So
And is there a fiscal note that's been drawn up or anything?
I do not have a fiscal note, but I do know that the funding is in the FY24 budget from the governor's recommendation. But I do not have a fiscal note to present to you today.
Thank you.
Senator Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Gamble, if the purpose is to retain officers, but we're going to allow officers to step away from service and go back to study, doesn't that kind of contradict the intention of the bill?
So they're not stepping away from service. They would be doing this while they are serving. So they're working, and they're going to be doing this in either after hours scenario, or it might be that they work with their department or the police department or the sheriff's department. If they allowed them certain times to be off to go participate in doing this, they would have to work that out.
Okay, and further question for the representative. If it's just good for 5 years, or they have to work for 5 years to qualify, how do you keep somebody from just taking advantage of it, for a year and then stop being a police officer and go into another line of?
So, and that came up in the House, and that's a good question. This is something that we are looking to do to address the issue that we're seeing around the state. And so technically, if someone decided that they wanted to leave, they could leave. Now, we're not on the hook for $20,000. You know, we would be on the hook at that point for whatever they had qualified for at the end of the first year, because it's reevaluated on an annual basis to determine if they've worked for that full year first before they're even going to draw down the first amount of money that they would be eligible for. So that's where Student Finance Commission would be monitoring it. So technically there is a risk that we could lose someone, but the idea is that we're willing to take that risk to offer this incentive because we believe that this will bring more people into law enforcement and to encourage them to stay with us. This is also modeled after a Texas initiative that we are modeling this after, that has been successful in Texas to recruit and retain law enforcement officers.
Representative Williams. Senator Williams.
Thank you, sir.
Former Representative Williams.
I wear two hats, three hats. This also would be an incentive for the officer to take these courses because the way I understand it, the more trained they are within their department, they usually get a raise in salary. So this is helping them advance their standard of living, which is awesome.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the bill.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Representative, would you confirm the LC number on this bill, please?
Tyler, the one that I've got, and I've got a lot of notes written on it, but the one that I'm working off of is LC 500536-ECS. Is that what you have before you?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Good
You're
deal.
exactly right. Okay, we have a couple of speakers. Mr. John Melvin from the GBI.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, I meant to sign up for 163.
Okay, sir. Okay. Mr. Butch Ayers from the Georgia.
You're in favor, right?
There you go. Yes, sir. Would you please state your full name and who you work with, title, where you're from, who's your mom and daddy?
Good afternoon. My name is Butch Ayers. I'm the Executive Director for the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. Prior to becoming the Executive Director 3 years ago, I spent 35 years with the Gwinnett County Police Department.
Where?
Gwinnett County Police Department. I'm here to speak in support of House Bill 130. I think it's going to have a positive effect on the recruiting and retention issues that we have here in the state of Georgia. And one of the things, we did a study last year. We surveyed approximately 215 police departments across the state of Georgia, and we asked them what their authorized manpower was and what their actual manpower at that particular time was. And what we found is that there was about a 3,000 to 4,000 officer shortfall in those departments. So basically we had staffing at about 74, 75%. Now there are some departments that are full, but there's a whole lot of departments that are significantly short. So I think that this type of the bill, and I appreciate the representative for bringing the bill, would have a very good positive effect upon the recruiting and retention.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any question from the committee? You do? Okay, Senator Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you said this is for all law enforcement officers, but on line 20, it says become employed as a full-time peace officer in this state for the first time on or before January 1st. Or after. But the section B below that is just for officers who were enrolled in criminal justice classes. So that wouldn't include officers earlier than January 1st who weren't already enrolled in a criminal justice class, right?
So the first part deals with new folks coming in, and the second part deals with those that are already there, to make sure that we're delineating between the fact that we're going to help you. If you have student loan debt prior to coming to work, then you're eligible to have that paid off if you'll work for us. And if you're already employed and you don't have student loan debt, but you want to go back and get a criminal justice degree, then you are eligible to receive up to $20,000 if you work for 5 years but it's got to be for criminal justice. It can't be for just any degree.
Yeah, Representative, it's just on 24 when it says "and," you have to go back into that criminal justice study. So, for me, I think it's a bit unfair to the people who already, have got their post certification before that, and they're going to have to be paying their student loans, whereas we're going to have this separate class that's going to be treated differently.
And I understand what you're saying. This, I think, was the first effort to put something out there, and it's possible that we could come back at some point and look at that at a later point. I'm certainly not opposed to that down the road, but for now, this is how this particular bill is designed to addressing the retention and recruitment initiative.
I think the word, in the big word recruitment,
Mm-hmm.
and that's unfair, but that's just the world we in. Recruitment is the big word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the will of the committee?
I'll make a motion to pass.
Thank you. And a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
And he's sitting on the yes side of it. Thank you. We thought we had him. Yes, Senator Hostel.
Appreciate Representative Gamble being here. He is out of my Senate district, and he's trying to catch up in politics with his family. His wife was the youngest House member at 22, and his uncle was Joe Frank Harris, so he's way behind catching up with them.
Yeah.
But I did have a question. You've got 72 lines in this bill. I think the next governor bill is 70 lines. Does he have a limit on how many lines he can give y'all?
I'm going to save that for our next floor leader to answer that question. I appreciate y'all's support.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for being. We appreciate y'all.
Yeah,
Thank you,
you.
sir. Representative McDonald.
Yes,
Good to
sir.
see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Well, you wouldn't mind if I bring up the chief medical examiner for the state?
Not at all. Not at all.
I'm an expert, but he really is an expert, so.
How's your daddy doing?
Oh, perfect.
How's your daddy doing?
Just stays on my tail all the time. This is Dr. Jeffrey Smith. Today is his one-year birthday being back with us and as our chief medical examiner. So we are glad to have him back, and this is kind of what, House Bill 163 is all about, is getting talent back in Georgia or finding and recruiting new talent. So, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of higher ed, it's great to be here today to try to address a much-needed problem that's in our state. And I know those that are in rural Georgia, maybe not in the metro area, get the calls, but I think a few of y'all have gotten calls from your constituents because of the delays that are happening, getting their loved ones back, and of course with law enforcement, with investigations, because of the shortage that we're having. Currently in Georgia, we have positions for 19 medical examiners. We have the funding for 19. At the current time, we only have 9. So we have 10 open spots. We do have a part-time ME in Pooler and a part-time in Macon, but as I want to stress part-time, sometimes they can be there and sometimes they're not. So these loved ones that are dying in Thomasville or in St. Mary's or up in your neck of the woods, they're having to go to Atlanta, and with the shortage, it's causing a delay in not only the examination but the travel time that does play into this. So the initiative the governor and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation have come up with is again another recruit and retainment type initiative, and this bill has gotten better and better as it's gone through the process. We started out at $100,000 loan repayment to these medical examiners that we're recruiting, and in the House we found another $20,000 to make it $120,000. I made a mistake and did not see that we weren't offering this to the current medical examiners that we have there for their loan repayment. And that's why we have the Senate. Y'all can always make something better. I want to thank the chairman for catching this and the GBI that we were not thinking about the current 9 that are there. So we have included in HB 163 the opportunity for them to also have their loans repaid. With this, it's not just a Georgia issue. This is a national issue. And that's why I have Dr. Smith here. He can tell you about getting people to want to go into forensic science. It's not sexy. And the pay is good in Georgia, but other places it's not. And I think he can talk to what is out there, the attractiveness of this. There's probably 3 or 4 states that have started this type program, but people still want to move to Georgia. And by us doing this, and with the Senate and the House and the governor offering this to all of forensic pathologists going through school or working at other states, this is going to be very attractive to try to fill these 10 spots. And of course, there are other spots we need to fill in Pooler and Macon, but this is a great place to start. I'll yield for any questions.
Can we let the speaker? Yes. Yes, sir. Would you mind speaking?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm Jeffrey Smith. I'm the Chief Medical Examiner. Actually, I started working for the state when the legislature, in its infinite wisdom back in 1997, decided that the state needed a medical examiner's office. At that point in time, a large amount of the work was being done on a contract basis with doctors from Fulton County, and the then director of the GBI, Mr. Buddy Nix, pushed very hard and succeeded in getting a state medical examiner system. And I was one of the first doctors, one of 4, that came to work for that system in 1997. And at the time that I left to go and work at Fulton County in 2004, the state medical examiner system had 6 regional offices staffed and working very well, serving the citizens, the coroners, the constituencies in the state. Today, that number is halved. So 3 of those offices have closed down, largely due to physicians who are working there vacating, resigning their positions, and the positions were not being able to be filled. And those offices include Moultrie, Somerville, and Augusta.
Wow.
Fast forward to today, every year a very small number of graduates in the field of pathology, which is a specialty branch of medicine, decide to go into training for forensic pathology, which is medical examiner work. And I think last year there were a total of 40 individuals finishing up training programs across the United States and looking for jobs. 40. If you look on the National Association of Medical Examiners website, there are somewhere between 65 and 70 positions, including our own positions, advertised. And they're all very competitive in terms of salary, in terms of benefits. And this bill helps us in Georgia distinguish ourselves from the pack. So an individual who is deciding where they would like to work as a medical examiner can scroll down the list of jobs for offer, and everybody's looking for something that obviously, where would I like to live, remuneration, is there anything else that sweetens the package? And I think this goes a long way towards helping us with individuals, the small number of individuals who are graduating from programs, who are looking for jobs to come and work here in Georgia. And the legislature has been very kind to the Medical Examiner's Office over the years. There's been a tremendous increase in the salaries for medical examiners relatively recently. I have spent my entire professional life in Georgia working within medical examiner systems, including Fulton County, the state, and DeKalb County. And I'm happy to be back here at the Medical Examiner's Office with the GBI, the State Medical Examiner's Office, marshalling the forces as best I can at the moment to cover the state. And I know a number of you probably have some questions, specific questions for me, or general questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Let me ask you 2 questions. Start off with, I was told by the governor's office, which I totally agree with, or not, that you mentioned Savannah earlier, that we have 3 positions in Savannah, and none of those positions are filled right now. So Savannah does not have a medical examiner in Savannah.
That's the Pooler location that I
Pooler
mentioned.
location,
Yes,
that's
sir.
right. And the second thing I learned in the last year or so is that when y'all have to write up reports now, if a guy sounds awful, as a guy shot 5 times, that's basically, is it 5 different reports? or is it?
No, it would be a single, if it was
But-
one
but-
individual, it'd be a single report.
But it takes a longer time because of the way people are shooting people up now versus
Oh, it's
versus-
definitely getting more complicated.
that's what I was trying to say.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in the time that I've been here working, comparing when I was last with the state to now, obviously the biggest problems we're dealing with as medical examiners, and obviously coroners, law enforcement, and local communities, is the epidemic of drug overdoses and the spectacular and unpleasant increase in gun violence.
Yeah. Senator Husted.
Yeah, thank you for being here today, and I know this has been a problem for quite some time. I've heard about it, and matter of fact, Somerville is in Senator Moore's district. He might even vote for this bill since we got a vacancy there. I'm not sure. But when you lose these people when they're competing to go out, typically and you may have said this and I might have missed it, but where do they go instead?
Well, I hate to say this, but we at the state are in competition with other medical examiners' offices in the state. I have had two individuals leave for jobs in Metro Atlanta medical examiners' offices.
Okay.
It's a complicated issue, ascertaining why people decide to move on to other positions. I think you'd have as many answers as you have individuals, but I think the remuneration, the working conditions in the state system here in Georgia is very good. And I don't have a good answer for why people move on and where in particular. But we are not only in competition across the country, we're here in competition
in the state.
In the state, yes.
Yeah. Well, the Attorney General the other day in budget was losing people to the university system, and we said we could cut their budget to make sure that didn't happen again. So we'll see if we can do something in this area too.
I'd like to answer, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
something that Senator Hofstadter. With the current 9 that we have, I think they try to base their caseload per annual year of 260, if I'm correct, 270.
Yeah, we the National Association of Medical Examiners accredits individual offices. They reach certain standards, but they have standards that the doctors and the officers have to reach. And as far as case numbers is concerned, they say each medical examiner, ideally, in order to maintain full accreditation by the National Association of Medical Examiners, should not be doing any more than 250 examinations per year. At our office at the moment, we have at least half the doctors approaching somewhere between 400 and 500 cases that we're doing.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, sir. I want to indulge y'all. I've been in the funeral business all my life. Back in the old days, Dr. Larry Howard would fly into the local airport, and police or somebody would pick him up, bring him to our funeral home, and he would do the autopsy in our funeral home. And then he would leave and make his rounds all over the state. With the increase of population and violence, of course, and the workload, I've seen a lot of things happen and change through the years, and I want to say we need this. We need to have other pathologists leaving private practice or other wanting to come to the state of Georgia to go to work. It needs to be reversed. So whatever we need to do, if it's more appropriations of what, I have refrigeration facilities that I've had to hold a decedent in there for a week and a half, 2 weeks, waiting to be taken care of, and the family is in limbo in this time, and I'm looking forward to this happening, and I think this doctor here is going to be a breath of fresh air, and we're going to be, I'm really pushing for it. We really, really need this.
Thank you. Senator Orrick.
Chair, thank you for bringing the bill, and I mean, this is not something that's come up overnight. We've been laboring under these conditions for a good while, so it's great to have an effort here to find some solutions. To remind us what kind of medical debt, what kind of student debt a doctor can run up. I've got a close young niece who's in her residency, but it's formidable. is it not? And hence you have to, we have to be providing a substantial incentive with this bill.
Yes, I think, unfortunately, due to the debt, a lot of individuals calculate where they would like to practice medicine, and medical examiners for the longest period of time were not in the high tier in terms of, you're essentially working as a state or local government employee. And the individuals that go into forensic pathology understand that to some degree. We're not going to be earning the same amount as cardiac surgeons or interventional radiologists, that sort of thing, and I'm very happy about that. But I think I was asked the last time I was in front of the House committee, and I gave a ballpark that anecdotally, I think it's anywhere from $120,000 to $400,000, with a median probably around about $250,000.
Let me cut you off there. Senator Moore, and then we got one speaker, Mr. John Melvin. So if you hold on just a second. Okay, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was looking over the substitute, and I just want to make sure so there's 9 examiners now, right?
Yes, sir.
And the examiners today that have student loan debt, if this passes, they're going to qualify too.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I really look at this almost as like a salary increase, right? If we were to take $120,000 and divide it by 5 years, okay, that would be like $24,000 a year. You think if we increase the salary of medical examiners by $24,000, that would probably wouldn't put a dent in recruiting any new medical examiners, would it?
Let me tell you the problem I'm having. It's a mystery. As you've alluded to, Paula, the day I walked in the door a year ago, I was told that Paula is being vacated by the 3 doctors that are there for various reasons. I tried not to take it personally, but they were, a couple of them were on their way out anyway. And so we have a beautiful facility in Paula. It's close to a very desirable part of the state to live in. And the salary down there has been incentivized quite significantly, as has the salary in Macon. I have had one nibble at a Paula position and nothing else in the past year, and it's a mystery to me.
Okay.
And the salary over and above, I think, I'm trying to get the figure off the top of my head, it's probably in the vicinity of $50,000 more than headquarters doctors, in order to, like I say, try and incentivize it for individuals that difficult to fill positions.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, because of that, I'm going to be in support of this.
Okay. Really?
I want to say one
we got
quick
one
thing
more
that I
speak-
learned during this process
Yeah.
is a lot of our, your DeKalb's, Gwinnett, Cobb's, they contract this out.
Yeah.
So if DeKalb decide to get out of the medical examiner business,
It should.
it falls back on the state of Georgia. We have that responsibility.
Yeah. Mr. Melvin, we're going to give you 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. I just want to bring out one other thing, sounds that's relevant to it. We've been working on this, I've been with the Bureau for about 4 years. Hi, my name is John Melvin, I'm Executive Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. We surveyed the nation and we found 2 offices, Maricopa in Arizona and the state of Wisconsin. They are at 100% employment or 99%. They are outliers, but this is the one thing that's in common with them. We are confident, and we can say anecdotally, the people that we do contact, once we say this is on the horizon and we're optimistic about it, the interest is significantly increased. And we would ask for favorable consideration along these lines.
Okay.
This weekend, we will receive, and just one other stressor on our medical examiner's office, 2/3 of the autopsies are overdose related. And until the fentanyl crisis gets solved, the stress on our medical examiner's office is going to continue to increase.
Yeah, big article in Atlanta Journal today on that. And we're going to make history today. Senator Moore is going to make the motion to approve this.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to do pass House Bill 163 by substitute. That's LC 500569 ECS.
And the second comes from Senator Hostetler. Yeah, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 0. That's 100%.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Who's carrying this bill?
Mike Hodges, Senator Hodges.
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay, we didn't get that on.
From the islands, sir.
So do you want me to
Oh,
do
you
it?
did?
Yep, listen,
Yeah.
we worked it out. Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Okay. Oh, Matt, that's one. Yeah, it is. Step up to the plate. Representative Gaines, step up. This is a very interesting, very good bill. Personally, I'm aware of it. I've got a good friend in this room who I'm very fond of, who's also going to talk about it today too, other than Representative Gaines.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be with you, and pleased to present House Bill 185, and it should be LC 5000574S. And what this legislation does is we have programs across the state, including my interest is at the University of Georgia, but several other schools, including Kennesaw, Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern, have what are called inclusive post-secondary education programs that allow students with intellectual disabilities to attend some of our great universities and colleges throughout the state. Our program at UGA is called Destination Dogs. It was something when I was a student at UGA helped start there, and the reason I'm interested in this bill. But the students who are in these programs are not currently eligible for Hope Scholarship or any sort of funding mechanism. And so what this bill would do, it does not put it under Hope, but does create a mechanism for funding that would be a grant program called the IPSI grant program. And we do have in the House version of the budget $1 million that would fund this program. The only change between the House and Senate version, House version passed, I think unanimously, was one addition. These programs oftentimes have significant program fees. This just allows, if the General Assembly in the future wants to fund the tuition fees as well, that would be an opportunity. I know there have been some discussions on the appropriation side, but it would just allow that. But really, this just creates an IPSI grant program to allow the General Assembly to fund. It would all certainly be subject to appropriations. And it does, in the current version of the bill, sunset after 5 years, so we can try this program out, the funding out for 5 years. These programs have been, I know the UGA program would have started about 2016, 2015. And there's, again, programs throughout the state. And I'll tell you the success and the reason I think, in particular, the state should help support these programs at Georgia Tech, which normally I don't speak very highly of Georgia Tech, but their program, just as an example, has a 90% employment rate among the students who attend these programs, go through. The whole goal of these programs is take these students from education to employment over their time in these programs. And I think, Mr. Chairman, I think you may have said you had the chance to visit with the Georgia Southern program, but it's amazing what these programs do, and it's something I think we can all support. And so that's what the bill does, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know we have Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities is in support of the bill, and here if there are any questions as well.
Senator Moore.
How are you, sir?
Good. How you doing?
All right. I do have a question when it comes to developmental disabilities, and I want to make sure if we're going to go through with this legislation that developmental disabilities are included fully, because right now it just appears as if it's intellectual disabilities. That's what's defined.
Yep.
But we're not defining developmental disabilities. But I do see a little bit of hope in the fact that the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities has a little authority in this. So can you elaborate?
Sure, and that has been an ongoing discussion point of whether to say and developmental disabilities or just intellectual disabilities. All of these programs do require the student to have an intellectual disability. So if you're required to be intellectual and developmental disabilities, you might be excluding some students. But all of these programs in their where they are today require students to have intellectual disabilities. And I don't know if you may want to speak to this a little bit further as well.
Hi, I'm Star Bruner. I'm the transition director at the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. Thank you guys for having us. Yes, all of our programs, not just here in the state, but nationwide, there's 310 IPSE programs, inclusive post-secondary education IPSE. They all require that students must have an intellectual disability. That's the purpose of these programs. It's not for ID and DD, it's just for intellectual disabilities. There is an overlap. Many times when a student has an ID, they may also have a developmental disability as well. But these programs were specifically created and authorized under the Higher Education Opportunity Act of the reauthorization in 2008, specifically created for students with ID. And so our programs are only allowing students with ID into the programs. They must have been served by the IDEA under an IEP in high school, and they usually need a documented psych evals and doctor's notes documenting their ID as well. Does that help answer that one?
I guess Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused. I mean, where does autism fall into this?
So that's a great question. So autism is a developmental disability, but not all people with autism have an intellectual disability. So if we were to say and DD, you could imagine a situation, well, the schools wouldn't take these students, but you could imagine a situation where a student would have autism but not an intellectual component, and then they might lower their sights from a degree-seeking program to IPSE, and that would be not ideal. Our programs wouldn't take those students anyway, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a lot of students in our programs who do have autism, but they need to have the intellectual component as well.
Thank you. I think we have a couple speakers. Miss SCRAGG.
Scrag.
Yeah. You mind coming forward? Yeah, Kennesaw State. Over 40,000 students, 40,200 to go into the NCAA tournament.
Yes, we are.
That's cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee. My name is Celia Scragg. I'm here from Kennesaw State. Just to clarify, I don't represent Kennesaw as, the entity, but I am the academic program specialist for the inclusive post-secondary education program that we have. And it's called the Academy for Inclusive Learning and Social Growth. We have the largest program in the state and the oldest program in the state. So over the years, we have graduated more than 120 students, and currently we have 45 students in the program. The program has been graduating students since 2011, so we have a lot of good data. I've been in the program since 2019, so I've been able to see this will be the 4th graduating class that I've been with over the years. And I just want to say that I've been in education for more than 25 years, and this is by far the most rewarding experience I've ever had. These students have been marginalized their entire educational experience. And when they come into these programs, they find for the first time support. There is a social structure that they feel like they belong to. They get educational opportunities that they would have basically been cut off from once they leave school, and they get career building opportunities. At Kennesaw State, about 80% of our students are placed in employment once they leave the program, and within a year, the majority of those students are still employed. And the research shows by far that the students who complete these programs are much more likely to be less dependent on social services, on Social Security, on different types of services that if they had not gone through the program, they would likely be really entitled, tied to their entire adult lives. I'm not sure if you're aware, a few years ago, Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation used to provide some funds for students. They've significantly cut those back. So now our students can only qualify for a few $1,000s a semester, and they have to be 22 or under. So some of our students, if you think about it, students have to be or can be in high school until they're 22 years old under the IDEA Act. So when they come to us, sometimes they may be 20, 21, 22. So they're already coming in with no support from that agency. A student in our program, it could cost them, if they live on campus, they have to have a meal plan. And if they live on campus, it could cost as much as $13,000 a semester. That is average for our students. And the only grant money they qualify for is a Pell Grant, which is income-based. So, our middle-class students kind of fall in that crack because they don't qualify for Pell, but their parents can't afford $13,000 a semester for these, for these services. I can tell you that if you were to come and visit, meet some of these students, you wouldn't think twice about supporting this bill. Again, I, would encourage you, if you ever want to come visit us, we are at Kennesaw, we're close, right up the road. We lost 5 students this year. We had 50 students. We started the year with 50 students, and we lost 5 students this year because of funding, because they could not afford to come back a second semester. And we try to do everything we can to start, to try to get grants. All of the grant money we get goes straight to scholarships, and still that's not enough. So this money could be a game changer if they could pay for their tuition and their program fees, because this would eliminate a majority of the cost, and this would allow our programs to continue to serve this population where they don't receive any other funding from any other sources.
Do you have any idea how many total students in the university system?
Total IPSI students across the state, we're only talking about 130 or so students. 148, okay.
Oh, in the whole state? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're not talking about funding like these huge amounts of students. And most programs, are a lot smaller than ours. So, like Georgia Southern, East Georgia, some of the programs that you mentioned that you had visited, are smaller and do have less, opportunities for funding than even we do, because, we have, our program fees can sometimes support a bigger staff. But, in that case, if we start losing students because of funding, then that also goes away. Their support within this, within the school goes away. So it's, we highly support this bill. Like I said, it could be a game changer for our students. And, I would encourage you to think about the impact that it has on these students. And you had mentioned the intellectual developmental disability. The students who come into the program, if they are on the spectrum, if they don't have an intellectual disability, the program is designed for students with intellectual disabilities. And so people on the spectrum can get into schools even though they have have autism. They can still get in as a degree-seeking students. Our students cannot. So they could not get into a regular college or university with the current standards that they would have to meet. So we have an alternative pathway that they would be able to get into school. Our students audit courses. So, they would only be working toward a certificate, not a degree. So what would happen is if someone with autism without the intellectual disability came into the program, they could be losing out on, an experience that would be, obviously lead them to a degree program. Our certificate program, though, prepares them specifically for the career and the social and the academic piece that will help them once they graduate. The other thing is, too, we get, inquiries all the time from students on campus who have autism that would like to come through and get our social services and things like that. Obviously, we can't, afford to provide those services because we don't have the manpower to do that. So, these are just some things that, unfortunately, they're needed. So these populations are out there and they need support.
Mr. Miller, you want to speak? Charlie?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, we're going to let Charlie speak. And then,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Don't leave.
Okay. I'm going to have to leave in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta leave in just a minute too. Charlie's gonna only speak for about a minute and a half. Otherwise, I'm gonna cut him off.
Well, to be honest with you, I had a 3-hour speech. prepared. I'll cut it down to an hour. No, but seriously, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I just want to say thank y'all so much for hearing this bill. This is personally really something very important to me. I actually went through a inclusive post-secondary as well. Go Owls! And when I went through the program, I apologize. Well, before I started the program, my father, which some of y'all may know, thought it would be a really good idea for me to be a secretary at his car dealership. I don't know if y'all know me or not, but I cannot sit still. And I was like, there's no way I could be behind a desk all day. So luckily, me and my mother found Kennesaw State University, and I went all 4 years. One of the classes that I took is world politics, because one of the things I want to do is make a difference in Georgia, in our community around disability issues. One of the things that I live by in my work and my passion and everything I do is make the disability community a little bit better for the next generation. Y'all, this is one of the bills that's going to make the disability community better for the next generation. And I really would love your favorable consent to pass this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Harrell.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Don't leave,
Chairman. It's my understanding that prior to me coming to the Senate, I think it was 2018, there was a bill passed that declared Georgia as an employment first state. We have not really achieved the goal set forth in that bill yet, but a program like this with such high employment placement after graduation will help us reach those goals of being an employment first state, which is kind of the belief that everyone with the right supports can work and earn their own income, which is a very empowering thing to do. So at the appropriate moment, I'd love to make a motion that House Bill 185 do pass.
Please do. You don't have a question, do you? Your light went off. Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I found some confusion in it, but maybe I can ask.
Yeah, just a minute. Okay. Short time now.
Okay, so this grant money is going to go to degree-seeking students? No.
It's a certificate.
These are certificate programs. They're not degree seeking. So degree seeking students would be admitted into the university, meeting all of the university admissions.
Okay, so line 38 to the author, shall receive the grant equal to the current academic year of undergraduate tuition. So are we going to be paying for the full tuition but not on the path to a degree?
It would be tuition's based on how many hours you're enrolled in, and it would be the full tuition amount for the number of hours these students are enrolled in.
Okay, but they're only going for a certificate and not an actual degree.
That's correct. This certificate program, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, let's give it to Chuck Payne, Senator Payne. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed. I wish it was going to the degree.
Okay.
But they're still employable.
Yeah.
The point is employment.
Yeah, there are 310 programs across the United States, and they all are certificate programs.
Change your vote. Okay.
We'll work
It
on them.
passed.
We'll work on them for
Thank
the
y'all.
floor.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, who's carrying it? Oh. Representative Gaines, who's carrying this bill?
I think you are.
You are.
Okay, thank you, sir.
She's asking to vote on the sub.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's
Okay.
that's a fine abstract theory.
Okay, thank you.
Star, he has
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question. He says, why aren't they capable of getting degrees?
Oh, because they have Board of Regents.
Okay.